Hello everybody, this is Connor, BoatsDon'tSink, here with another Vice Schwartz deck profile. Today we're going to be looking at Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest. This is going to be a 2-soul treasure version of the deck, focused on the Yue level 1 and Shea level 3. Reminder before we take a look at this deck list, this is meant to be a starting point to work off of and may not be fully optimized to play in a specific meta. You should test this for yourself and make any necessary changes to suit your playstyle or meta differences. Taking a look at the list, it is fairly simple, lots of 4-ofs, very few different cards. You can find the deck log at the code in the bottom right, Q57W. And yeah, let's jump in and just take a look at why we're playing all these different cards. You can see this is majority yellow with a little bit of green. We're basically only playing yellow-green with a small splash of red for a level 3 option. Lots of soul triggers, lots of level 0s, so we can really just go pretty fast with this deck and never have to worry about too much clogging. The first card we have here is Special Lover Yue, 4 copies from the trial deck. This is a drop search. On play from hand, we can pay 1, discard 1 to search our deck for a character, put it in hand, shuffle. And when this becomes reversed in battle, if we have 2 or less cards in memory, we can send this to our memory. So this is a card that we need in memory for our level 1 combo to work, so it is mandatory that we find this as fast as possible and get it into our memory. It is nice because turn 2, if we're playing this down, we can drop search for our level 1 combo, so it helps set up in multiple ways. Unfortunately, it does have the downside of not being like some of the more recent memory cards where they can go to memory even just at the end of their attack. This does have to get reversed, so that is kind of the downside here, is that you might have to play around trying to find a way to crash this into something sometimes. Next card we have is 4 copies of Unwavering Beliefs Hajime. This is 0015, on play gains an additional 15, so 3000 power can help clear some utility cards, even the bigger ones, though it's not really going to be able to contest oversizes. Other effect is on play from hand and when put into waiting room from stage. We can pay 1, put the top card of deck into clock to add a character from our waiting room back to our hand. So this is a way just to keep hand size early and card advantage so that we can keep sort of pushing damage. Once we get into the mid game, we can also use this to recur our level 1 combo in any scenarios where it ends up getting reversed and going to the waiting room, since it is pretty small on power if it doesn't get to resolve its effects. We do also need 4 copies of this card, not only as red color fix for our level 3 UA, but the level 3 UA itself does also require this card in waiting room for its effect, so we will need it for that as well. Next we have 4 copies of the ARI Brainstorm. This is a double rare from the booster. Act, pay 2, rest this card to put the top card of our clock into waiting room. This is going to let us play longer games if we need to, despite being a Soul Rush deck, just by healing for a while. And it is really one of the only heal options we have in the deck. In addition, pay 1, rest itself. Brainstorm 4, add a character from waiting room to hand for each climax we reveal. This is kind of just something we want to sit in the back row all game, mash it for card advantage so that we can recur some cards if we need to, and if we're sitting on a full hand and have extra stock, we can just heal instead to keep a pretty big damage gap with our opponent. Our other back row card that we'd like to see is the Butt Up Rabbit Time Shea. When we trigger check a climax, we can discard a climax to look at top 2 from deck, choose a card from among them, put it into hand, and put the rest into waiting room. This is going to come up occasionally because we're playing 4 trigger climaxes, but even then, oftentimes we won't want to discard the climax. Since we do want to loop our level 1 climax combo every turn of the game, it'll often be better just to hold that treasure in hand so that we can climax swap it into a 2-soul on the following turn. Second effect is why we really play this card. Pay 2, discard a character, rest this card, choose a character in waiting room, return it to hand, then choose another character in waiting room with the same card name as the first one, and return that to hand as well. This is an effect that we saw in Sword Art Online Alicization on a Yu-Gi-Oh! It saw a little bit of play there, since it was also a gate trigger filter, but this one is going to be a critical component of this deck. One of the big things about our level 1 combo, it bounces back to our hand when its damage is cancelled, but if its damage is not cancelled, it is going to end up getting reversed and sent to the waiting room. Once it's there, we can use this Shea to immediately grab 2 copies of it back to keep looping our combo every turn. We also are going to need a lot of level 3s in our hand for our finisher turns, a lot of copies of the same level 3, so this can also help us set up by getting multiple copies of those to our hand for our finisher turns. Next we have Summer Beach Yue. This is a climax swap. It's on play from hand. We can discard a climax and sack a character from stage in order to add a climax from our waiting room back to our hand. This is nice. It doesn't cost stock, though we will have a fair amount of stock anyway. But this being stockless just means we can really double up on either compression or mashing the heal effect of our brainstorm, or just setting up for big finisher turns. We're playing 3 copies of this because we really want to be playing our level 1 combo every single turn, and we want to be able to see this every turn as a result. We're playing 1 copy of Synergist Hajime. This is another 0/0. We can, on play, pay 2 and send 1 other character from our stage to our clock. If we do, choose an event or climax in our waiting room and return it to hand. So in the turns where we don't have a climax in hand, in order to be able to climax swap, we can actually use this to get a climax straight to our hand and slam it to resolve our combo once again. Occasionally you can use this to set up your finisher turn if you need to, but generally this is just going to be for looping the level 1 combo turns where you didn't draw a second climax. We have 2 copies of Farmer Aiko. On play from hand, you can choose a card in hand and put it into stock. Very oftentimes, this deck will go over hand size limit if the opponent cancels a lot, so this can help us turn hand into extra stock resources. It's also nice because if we have extra climaxes in hand, we can put those into stock and immediately pay them out with a brainstorm or heal effect. Second effect is on play from hand, put a character from hand into clock to check top 4 cards of deck, add a card from among them to hand, and put the rest into waiting room. This can help us find climaxes and events, which is great, especially for trying to loop our combo. It's also good at level 0 for trying to dig for the special lover Yue in order to set up our memory as early as possible. The last level 0 that we're playing is Sexy Bikini Yue and Shea. This is a 0/025 with a really cool act ability. It's similar to the helmet effects that we see in Lake Hololive. Instead of salvaging, we can discard 1 and put this at the bottom of our deck to search deck for a character. Reveal it, put it into hand, and shuffle. This is generally just going to be a costless way to either find more copies of our level 1 combo, guarantee the drop search in the early game without having to spend stock. So if we go first, right, we attack once on turn 1. Turn 2, we can play this, bottom deck it to grab the drop search, play the drop search, search level 1 combo. It's -1 to hand size, but we can make up for that pretty easily once we start resolving combo, so it's usually fine in the long run. We can also, since this allows us to discard, if we're trying to go into a finisher turn on a fresh deck state, we can use this to discard the level 0 Hajime that our level 3 Yue needs in waiting room, in order to search that Yue and set up that whole combo sort of instantly. So just a really good utility card to have extra copies of sitting around for hand fix. Now, the main star of the show, Composure of a Wife Yue. This is our level 1 combo. It's a 1/0 3000 power, so really small. Doesn't actually have any way to gain more power, so you're never going to be contesting board here. But it does have a soul trigger, which, despite the fact that we're not playing any choice triggers to make use of that, is actually still just great. It means we're going to be pushing a bit more damage, especially since we have such a high level 0 count. Every soul trigger matters to be swinging for 2s and 3s and 4s early game. The big thing here, when this damage dealt by this card is cancelled, you may return this card to your hand. Doesn't need a climax combo even, so if we just either draw the wrong climax or have to swing vanilla, this sometimes gets us just random pluses that are great for looping this Yue combo over and over again. In addition, the climax combo itself activates 1 time per turn, When damage dealt by this card is cancelled if Aftertaste of a Kiss is in Climax area, and we have Special Lover Yue in memory. Choose 2 characters in Waiting Room, put them into stock in any order, look at up to 4 cards in the top of deck, choose a character from among them, reveal it, put it in hand, and put the rest in Waiting Room. Both effects here activate when damage is cancelled, and this is on a +2 soul Climax. Really something unique in the meta right now. No other decks really have great +2 soul Climax combos to make use of, but this one is really strong. They either, we're swinging for 3 damage or swinging for 4 damage and it's going to stick, or they cancel, we get 2 free stock, a card off the top 4 of our deck, and the Yue herself can return to hand if we want to, which usually we are. That's 2 stock and 2 hand per copy of Yue. If you field 2 or 3 of these, you can generate just resources forever. Or, stick 8 damage or 6 damage. Even just resolving one of these means you get 2 cards into hand, 2 stock, you dealt 6 damage. Next turn, you can use that 2 extra stock you generated for the back row Shea to rest it, discard the extra card you got off top 4, grab 2 Yues back to hand from Waiting Room that got reversed and sent there. Meaning it just, as long as 1 copy cancels, loops into itself forever. It's also really good the later the game goes. If you're getting a lot of stock off of this because your opponent is canceling a lot, then you're going to be able to keep digging through top 4, resetting your deck state into a really compressed situation every time. You're going to get a lot of cancels. Even though you're taking refresh points over and over again, you can use the Brainstorm in the back row to heal those off every time. So it's really good for fast, aggressive damage pushing games or longer games where you want to build resources. We have no level 2s, so we're jumping straight into our early play level 3. Sometimes you'll want to play this as an early play, sometimes you'll just want to hold it for your finisher turn. 3/2/85. If you have 4 or more characters, this gets -1 level in hand, plus 500 power for each of your other characters, make it a 10,500 on a full board. And auto. When this card is placed on stage from hand, we can put 1 copy of the Unwavering Beliefs Hajime from Waiting Room face up under this card as a marker. If we do, deal 1 damage to our opponent. At level 2, this can be used to just keep pushing extra damage on our opponent and keep being aggressive. Generally, I don't think that 1 damage is going to matter a whole lot when we're already slamming a 2 soul every turn. Usually we'll want to hold this for our finisher turn, since we have ways to cheat this into play for free to just get extra sort of damage and reach on the turn we're trying to end our opponent. And now our finisher itself. This is also from the trial deck, Brave Rabbitman Shea. It's a 3/2 10,500. On play from hand, choose up to 1 character with level equal to or lower than your level in hand, put it on any position of stage, and that character gets plus 2,000 power. Normally, these cards, the power is not super relevant. Here, it will matter, so it's pretty good that we have that. Then the Climax combo. Once per turn, at the end of this card's attack, if the Treasure Climax Well Then Let's Go is in our Climax area, and we have 2 or more other characters, pay 3, discard 1, stand to this card. Super simple. It is an end of attack, so we can direct, we can side. We just have to make sure that we survive battle, so memory kit counters are going to be a problem. That's pretty much the only thing that's super detrimental. Minus soul counters can be. Rest counters obviously are going to stop us from attacking, period. And anti-damage is going to stop the damage from both attacks if we restand. But big thing here, this card is super resource efficient. Since it lets us play a character, or place a character from our hand onto stage, when it comes in, that actually chains with itself. So for 2 stock, we can play our first copy of Shea, use its on play effect to play a second copy of Shea, use that to place a 3rd copy, and then use that one to place the Yue level 3 that we just looked at, getting us 1 extra damage to our opponent, and 3 copies of our finisher for only 2 stock. That means that on a starting main phase of 6 stock, we're able to do triple restand combo and an extra burn 1. Every 2 stock you have beyond that, so 8, 10, and so on, you're able to hard play an extra Yue level 3 from hand to deal 1 more damage. Eventually, if you have enough stock, you can actually also use the back row Shea that lets us grab 2 characters with the same name to play over the Yue level 3s so that they keep going to waiting room, and then use the back row, add 2 of them back to hand, and keep playing more. Obviously, this deck, if the game goes long enough, can pretty easily get to 12, 14, 16 stock that's going to let you play multiple Yue. In some games, even, you won't go for the Shea, you'll just loop the Yue, but generally, because of how resource efficient Shea is, you'll want to be using that as your primary finisher, with Yue just to get you into good kill range. Can oftentimes set up situations where this Shea can side attack as well, which gives us really good numbers on restands. The last card we play is another character we might want to be using that extra stock on our finisher turn for. 3/2/95 on play from hand. All characters in your opponent's center stage get minus 2,000 power until end of turn. That's also going to help our restander finisher make sure it wins battle, especially against things like memory kick counters, since minus 2,000 is going to put a lot of things into a power range where they can't stop us from restanding. Second effect, why we really play the card, on play from hand, we can discard 2 to put all of our opponent's stock into their waiting room, put the same number from their top of deck into stock. Obviously, restanders tend to swing for a lot of damage if you hit soul triggers, especially a 2 soul trigger in this deck's case. You keep that soul when you restand, which means oftentimes we might be attacking for 4, 5, or 6 damage when we're trying to just deal 3 to close out the game. A compressed deck is going to cancel that pretty easily, even just average compression. So being able to stock swap our opponent and catch them off guard and ruin their compression can help all of our restand attacks stick. The one event that we're playing, 4 copies of At the Bottom of the Abyss. This is a 1/0 event counter. Not usually playing this as a counter, but the option is there if you're on a climaxless deck. It's just look at top 4 of deck, choose a character from among them, reveal it, put it into hand, put the rest into waiting room, then put this card at the bottom of your deck. This is kind of interesting as a counter, since the way this interacts with refresh is that you'll check the top 4. Say you have exactly 4 cards in deck, you know none of them are climaxes. So your opponent attacks, you play this, mill through your clean deck. After you refresh and take a refresh point, then the event will go to the bottom of your new deck, meaning it's not going to make itself extra clean damage, as long as you're decking yourself using its effect. Main phase, this can also be used to dig down to a small deck state and then guarantee that you're going to trigger clean on the last, 2 or 3 cards of your deck here, which can help just sort of setting up extra states. You do have to be careful though. If you're ever playing this and then also resolving the level 1 combo, you have to remember when you check top 4 for the combo, this event isn't a legal target you can grab, so make sure you space it out to where you know you're going to have a character to grab there. Otherwise, this is just helping us dig early. If we haven't found a drop search by the time we hit level 1 to get memory set up, this can help us dig further for it, or just find extra copies of our level 1 combo, climax swap, etc. Moving into our climaxes, clearly we're playing 4 copies of the +2 soul that combos with our level 1 Yue. And we're playing 4 copies of the treasure, Well Then Let's Go, that combos with our finisher, Brave Rabbitman Shea. Taking a look at the deck as a whole, I think this does have a lot of pros, actually. Generally, I think people are going to look at Soul Rush decks like this and go, oh, that's just a meme, that's kind of, coin flippy RNG. But really, this is a Soul Rush deck that makes up for a lot of the common disadvantages Soul Rush decks have, where you're throwing a lot of characters at your opponent. If they cancel, you just run out of hand, didn't deal any damage, and you lose because of that. Yue generates so many resources that even if our opponent's canceling, we can just shift gears into playing a long game instead, and if they don't cancel, then, well, we can just kill them in like 3 or 4 turns. It's also very consistent. We have so many ways to search our deck for characters, grab characters out of our waiting room, grab multiple characters back at a time for very efficient costs. Lots of climax swaps, treasures to make sure we have climaxes in hand, so on and so forth. It's super realistic to actually resolve Yue combo 4 or even 5 turns in a row off of the +2 soul. And lastly, we do have a very low resource finisher. As I said, 6 stock gets us triple plus an extra burn 1. And you can resolve even, threatening finisher turns on as little as 4 stock, which is super easy to build in this deck, which is nice because if the game does go really fast and we stick all of our attacks, we're still going to have enough stock to play our finisher. The cons, however, of course, your Soul Rush damage does have to actually stick eventually. If your opponent just keeps canceling every turn, you probably will still lose before them, especially if they have Stock Swap to punish your resource generation. And lastly, our finisher does need to survive if it's in battle, which means against decks that have counter interaction, we do have to be wary of that. We don't have ways to bounce their characters back to board or turn off backups. Closer look at the entire deck. Still pretty simple. We're only playing, what is this, like 15 different cards in the entire deck. Lots of 4-ofs, so pretty simple to build, super consistent. I think y'all should really give this a try if you're a fan of fast, aggressive decks. I don't think this really has many bad matchups in the meta other than, you know, like compression decks that are really going to force us to try to use Stock Swap to get them in a spot where we can stick damage. So maybe not fantastic against Slime, but we do still have our own Stock Swap to punish them. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. This has been another deck profile of a deck I really like. You can check me out at X at BoatsDon'tSink, and hopefully we'll have some more videos out in the future. You should be able to check a couple of them on the screen now, and I'll see you next time.